I don't know what they're talking about.
Do you know that now in 2026, the regulations for splash pads are significantly more challenging to get
Oh, really?
permitted? Yeah, you can't do a closed loop anymore. It has to
Filter.
it has to be new
Yeah.
water.
Is it like
Yeah, the
bacteria
filtering,
type
yeah.
stuff?
Mm.
Yep.
Well, it seems like splash pads would be much more palatable than pools, but I don't know that. but
Yeah, don't build a pool or an ice arena.
Why not a nice arena?
Oh, they're very costly.
Yeah.
Cause
Sure.
your utilities are,
Utilities. Do we know about Patch?
She got her knee replaced this morning and will
Oh.
definitively not be coming.
Oh, well, okay.
good for her though. Good for
All
her.
right, we are on the air, so I'll call us to order.
Yes.
Forgot about
Thank you
that.
for that information. All right, I would like to call to order the Parks Commission meeting for Wednesday, January 18th, 2026. Let us now do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're going to have the agenda tonight. Everybody's got a copy? And if you want to make corrections or additions, let me know. Otherwise, I could use a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor of the motion to approve the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing no nays, it's approved. Using that agenda, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from December of 2025. Once again, I assume everybody got a copy. Are there any comments or additions or corrections?
So I just want to make a correction. So under the approval of November meeting minutes, it said that I suggested including attachments. And what I said was to make sure we document what the amendments are when we amend a motion, because the minutes actually said approved with amendments, but didn't say what the amendments were.
Ah.
So, and this says attachments.
Okay. Okay. Did you get that? Okay. Anything else? So can I get a motion to approve the minutes with the one amendment?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with the correction.
Do I get a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor of approving the November 15th, 2025 Lake Elmo Parks Commission minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? There are no opposed. All right, on to elections of officers. And just for everybody's general information, in my archives, I did run across the notes for how you're actually supposed to do this. Now, we're usually close to doing it, but I'm going to follow these things. So what we're going to do is we're going to canvass for nominations for chair. Once we have those, we'll get a single nomination for the position, and then the chair asks if the nominee is agreeing with this, and if that's the case, then we move on from there, and it depends whether we have multiple or one. And once that is over, then the new person takes place, and there is the same thing that you would do for the vice chair. Any questions before we go and do that?
I do. So you said there's a nomination, then subsequently, is there a motion on that nomination?
There's a motion when you get it down to one.
How do we arm wrestle to get it down to one?
No, it's
or
a vote. It's a vote. I could go through the whole thing. If there's only one, you then make a motion, and that's the person you
Okay.
vote on. If there are multiple, then you do the yeas and nays, or no. You tally up the votes for each one, and then you do the yeas and nays for the one.
Okay.
So you kind of separate out the motion from the second, because you don't second until you got somebody.
Okay. And where is that coming from?
These were handed out a year or two ago, I think because they noticed we were getting confused. And as we saw, they like us to follow, I assume this is out of Robert's Rules of Order, there's no reference.
Okay.
So, all right. So the first thing we're going to do is look for a new chair. And therefore, I would like people to, one by one, nominate someone for chair.
I'd nominate Hank for chair.
I'd second.
You don't need a second.
Oh.
He wanted to, though.
Yeah. That's how much, this is how much I want it.
I would like to not consent to that nomination.
Oh, this is why this is happening.
Do we have any other nominations?
Well, wait, a point of clarification here. What if nobody is well, we can get to
We can
that.
get to
I
that
guess.
point.
We can get to that point.
Because I would like to nominate Ellen.
Okay.
Does Ellen consent?
I would consent to that.
Good. Okay. Are there any other names to be thrown into consideration for chair?
We cannot nominate people that are not here, is that obvious?
There's a long story about that.
Okay.
I think you were here for that. But
There are two others that haven't nominated anybody. Do we?
anybody else? Generally, it's not considered a good thing to do because you don't have the consent. But there was a time when we were kind of forced to do it. It was like all newbies and one person who knew how to run the meetings. And the person who run the meetings was nominated, and we survived that thing. But in general, no. Anybody else would like to put forward a nomination? If not, you've consented, and there's only one nominee, the chair, being me, declares the nominations closed. May I have a second to nominate Ellen for the position of Chair of the Parks Commission?
I'll second nominating Ellen for the chair position.
Any discussion? I will discuss. I thought Ellen did a great job at the most controversial and crazy parks meeting we had. She did a good job, so I think she would be very good. And as we all heard, we're going to have to do some things with like invasive species. I think she would be a perfect person for that. Other than we'll lose our note taker, but that's another thing. All right. Any other discussion on the nomination? All right, we're going to take a vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Congratulations.
Okay, now I'm going to nominate the vice chair. Or-
You're going to conduct the nominations. We have
Conduct the
to switch positions here.
You don't have to
Just for
switch
the nominee.
positions.
Oh, that's where the.
Now your name
Now I'm
tag.
Hank.
Now your name tags are wrong.
That's my grandpa's name.
See, there's wonderful.
It's Destiny or
memories.
something like that.
The memory. See, this is good. All right, and let me give you the script here.
All right.
So yes, we go through and do the same thing for the vice chair.
All right, would anyone like to make a nomination for vice chair of the Parks Commission?
I would like to nominate Tracy.
Tracy, do you consent?
Yes, I consent.
Are there further nominations? Hearing none, I'll close the nominations. May I have a second motion to nominate Tracy as the new vice chair of the Parks Commission?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
I'll make a general discussion that I think it both, yeah, I agree with what you had indicated earlier about our new chair. I also think that, just generally speaking, everybody should do it. So that is my general comment.
You don't necessarily need surgery to get out of it, but that's another thing.
Yeah, right.
All right, well, let's take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried.
To new officers.
You seem pretty excited about that.
All right.
I agree in your philosophy. It should go around.
Should be 2 years each, though, Hank.
Yeah.
Well, I've been assistant
You can only
once
do it
before.
Okay, all right.
so I've got 2 years in.
All right, okay. Moving on to the next agenda item. Adam, future playground replacements?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. So, over the past year, we've had a couple of conversations, not only with City Council, but including in our workshops, and the discussion has come up, being directed from City Council to us to continue to look at how our playground replacement looks in the years to come. They recommended that we look at our playgrounds, we look at possible other means of amenities to put in their place, instead of just going around and just completing replacing every playground, just because, you know, it's met its 25-year lifespan, and how do we go from there, right? So, so the issue before us tonight is like to put maybe together a criteria that we look at, that we can reference back to, about how the Parks Commission would like to prioritize or review playground replacements going forward. Now, this isn't something that I plan to like bring, to get approval from City Council, like our plan or objective.
The other one, try the other one.
This isn't a plan that we probably plan to, to review. I think I should take it back. We will review when we review our playground replacement as they come up, possibly in that CIP. Likely, I'd like to do that the year before we put that in that CIP, right? So we've already identified in that, ahead of time here, what we have coming up. So possibly that year before, we're really addressing that before that CIP, before we put it in there, of whether or not we're really looking at replacing that the following year. There are some benefits of getting the playground in place the year before. We can definitely take some credits or some funds off of there. We did kind of miss that window with our Lions Park replacement this year.
Are you trying to show a PowerPoint?
No.
Oh, okay,
No.
good.
I'm just thinking out loud.
Okay,
already.
I thought you were maybe looking at something and I was
So,
worried.
No, so we did kind of miss that window this year with our Lions Park replacement. But as we begin to prioritize these, we can begin to look at those stages maybe a little bit ahead of time. And if it is one that meets our criteria that we are going to replace, we can probably meet that deadline a little bit closer and get those things on the I guess the work plan for the following year. Probably with a reduced price of taking advantage of the year before prices, right? So, with that said, how do we want to prioritize and review those playground replacements going forward? One of our biggest things is our park users really value our parks and our amenities that are there. And I think Hank brought it up last night, is how do you tell a neighborhood that you're taking away the playground that's been there for 25 years or 30 or 40 years, right? And we're gonna replace it with something else. Or how do we value, or how do we review that or prioritize that to say, yes, that playground needs to be replaced? Under our park master plan, one of the things that highlights in there is that our playgrounds, baseball fields, and shelters are our main priorities, or main things that people go to our parks to see. I mean, playground was probably one of the #1 items besides our baseball fields that was probably a higher priority because of just the simulation that we were in at the time. With that being said, that is one thing that we, I think our residents really strive to go to, that attract them to our parks. And I think mainly because of playgrounds, when we do surveys, that's what our communities, you know, in this last one, we took the local communities, local residents to answer that survey. And that's one of the main things that they looked at, was one of the reasons why they went to the park. So of those parks, I mean, again, I'll re-quote myself from last night. Hank, I think I said 12, but according to my report, we have 15 playgrounds out there, right? So, so 5 of which are categorized as community parks. Lyons, Reed, and Stonegate, Tablin are all community parks that are slated for replacement in the next 8 years. So, that's one of the things I thought about as we were looking forward, is how to guide maybe the commission, is to look at, you know, we got some direction from city council to say, look at our neighborhood parks, and are those the ones that need to be replaced or not? It's like, well, so then do we look at, hey, just replacing our community parks? And what's tough with that is, as we look ahead, is that, yes, our Lions Park was probably one of our, that's kind of a no-brainer. I think we had a full vote on that one to replace that one, right? But our Ridge Park is not a community park. It's still classified, even in our new Parks Master Plan, as a neighborhood park. Our Tablin and Stonegate, which are our next 2 coming up, are community parks. So those would kind of relate down that trail. One could second guess that Ridge Park with the development that we do have potentially coming forward there in the next 10 to 15 years, and the access to that could easily become a community park in that area, or be classified as one outside like our park master plan that we have now. Going forward again, Carriage Station is classified as a neighborhood park. Again, the location of that could be skewed as a community park, because it has great access. Development around there probably isn't gonna change much in the next 10 to 15, possibly 20 years. But Tanner Ridge, neighborhood park, due in 2030. One could easily argue a possible removal of that one just because of proximity with Firefly, downtown Lions, just things like that. So that is one possibly in that next group that we could have a second look at. Hidden Knoll, we do have some possible changes up there coming with a new development to the south there possibly. That came to the Parks Commission last year. And again, up in that area besides Carriage Station, there is no other park for residents or citizens to use up there. And finally, our Reed Park in 2033. That one again could be classified, or I know that is a community park. One could argue maybe that's one you do replace, or do not replace, excuse me, because of its proximity to not only Pilot Park, but also to the downtown area. So with that, when looking at our playground replacements, we look at the age, wear, tear, overall use, location, proximity, to help guide our replacement decisions. What else can the community support in replacement of the playgrounds that will relate to the community to help improve our public use and our green space? You know, in that last section, I did talk about some of the things that we use as far as like community surveys, community engagement activities, just to kind of get that range. But a lot of times when we do those, again, we get a small number or small percentage of respondents, and the ones that are responding are the ones that live close to it and want it replaced or want something done there, right? So, so with that, I kind of turn that over to us to discuss, us to create a priority, to look at how we'd want to do that. You know, I do have the, kind of where we sit as far as budget on the bottom, but, you know, when we look at that 125 to, you know, I think the last one's 300,000, but, what can we do in replace of those? If it's not the playground, what do we put there as far as amenities to help our community use our green space, attract them to our parks, have our parks used, and so that we're not going backwards on our green space within our community.
Any questions for Adam?
If I could, Chair, can I make a point of clarification or ask Adam about Stonegate? You have that listed as a community park, and I guess I don't know how much this matters, but Stonegate is listed as a proposed classification as, and I think that was the combination or combining Ivywood, renaming it. We haven't done anything on that.
We haven't.
I'm wondering if Stonegate, I mean, again, I don't know to the extent for the discussion tonight whether this really matters, but I don't at this point consider Stonegate a community park. And I guess I don't, are you relying on that proposed change or?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I am relying on that proposed change to say, you know, with the development that you have going down there, that will be the only park in that area intentionally, right? So,
Okay.
you know, we will get funds from several developers that come into that area for park dedication funds, and where's that money gonna go? Into this pot, but then where do you put that? You know, that park is probably the only one that's gonna be in that area. So I do generalize that as being a community park, and future improvements to that general area.
Yeah, and I am completely blanking on whether we have, when we make the distinction between a neighborhood park and a community park, and I think this matters because we want to apparently prioritize community parks, but how have we made that distinction? Is it geographic size? Is it access? What have we used?
So I think as far as our parks master plan, a number of those concepts came into place. You know,
Yeah.
accessibility, you know, either be by means of walking or travel or parking.
Okay.
But amenities that were there and proximity of, you know, where it's located within our system, right?
Yeah,
So-
okay. Because, I mean, we do have Lyons and Reed, for example, which are right next to each other.
I would argue that, you know, Firefly was within that corridor as well. Can't be any further away from Lyons than Reed is.
Yeah, but I just mean those are both community parks,
Gotcha,
correct?
okay.
That's
Yep.
that's my point, just as far as proximity, I guess there's parking at, some of it, to me, comes down to parking. I know Stonegate has a little parking lot on that north side. Anyway, maybe I'm getting down to it. I wanted to just understand where we were coming from prioritizing when we say community parks versus neighborhood. My assumption is that's because there's more people accessing it, and I just kind of wanted to,
Yeah. You know, and those priorities, again, came from that Parks Master Plan. They changed a few of those, if you remember. They took a lot of these neighborhood ones and recategorized.
Right.
I shouldn't say a lot. They looked at all of our parks, listed them as how they were in our previous Parks Master Plan, and then recategorized several of them to be more identifiable for that.
Adam, can I ask maybe for clarification? And it was from last night's meeting and then the meeting we had with the council last fall. You know, there's discussion about reducing the number of playgrounds and, you know, I heard the number 7. So in your estimation, is that somewhat of the intent of this, but then secondary also is then they asked, we'll find other amenities that might work to replace those. So it's a little bit of twofold. So is that kind, I know that's what I heard, and I just want to clarify, is that kind of what?
Yeah, I'm not saying that should be the stem of that we look for, or at least one asset that we look at guiding this, right? Is like, are we looking for a magic number? You know, are we looking for replacement throughout the community, right? Because, we will have the new development in the far southeast of town, right? And so, again, that is a quadrant that is looking for a park, will be heavily populated. And so to say that a playground isn't going there, we have to have justification, why not, right? We better have a really good amenity that goes there, that'll attract people there to use it, right? So with that many people that are gonna be in that area. So, so back to your question, Tracy, is there a magic number? I mean, they gave us that number, I think, we utilize that to how we categorize that. It's a good guide for us to say, how can we meet that, right?
The number being 7. I didn't recall that, actually.
Yeah.
That's
It
interesting.
was
Yeah.
7, reduced. It was thrown out by one council.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess that's worth clarification too, as far as, I think that there's a difference between a discussion and a directive.
Right.
One council member saying this is what we should shoot for, I guess I don't, this is a comment more than a question, so I apologize, but having, one council member's input I don't think shouldn't guide our decision-making process. I think we should take it into consideration, but,
I think you gotta look, I mean, we've already done 3, Pebble, DeMontreville, Clayce, and now gonna do Lions Park, right? So we got, if you're, say we're gonna do 3 more, we're gonna be really spread wide, I think. So I think we use that number as a kind of setting stone to start with, but do we end up with 8, do we end up with 9? Maybe, does that prioritize our adjustment? I think that would, if we have clarification of why, I think it could clearly go that way.
Go ahead.
No, you can go
Okay.
first.
Part of this is the problems caused by previous, development, it's the history. Because we got all these put in at similar times, now they're all coming to be needing to replace, boom, 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 boom. And so part of it would be a thought about making this decision and not, let's say you have X park and you don't think it needs new playground equipment, that doesn't take it off the board forever, okay? If you don't put it in right away, that, but then it gives you the ability to space out these replacements potentially. And so you don't have all this happening at the same time. Part of this is that history of not continuously going through and replacing that, along with how they were built, okay, how they were added in, okay? The growth period, we get a whole bunch. But, so that's one thought. The other thought is, don't you think that doing them all, ranking them, prioritizing them like at one time is better than prioritizing them one by one? Is that what you were proposing, the one by one, as the budget year comes up, well, we'll prioritize it in?
No, I think what we do is we have a structure right now
Right.
of how we're going to, tackle this, right? And then as they do come up, yeah, then we would, we've already have that in our judgment to say, this one isn't gonna be replaced in the following year. And then, we have a different amenity going in there. Otherwise, we go back to the drawing books to say, this is what, after rethinking that, here's the reasons why we should.
And like I said, we could not replace and then come back, and it would be more costly, but if you could come back in a few years, do it. Okay, that convinced me about that process. But I do agree that I think we need a process to go through and do this, okay? And so I foresee, like I said last night, there's gonna be a lot of pushback, especially if we don't put an amenity back. And part of the clarification I'd want to get from council is, okay, what was your goal here of reducing playground sets? Was it to reduce costs? Well, if you're going to reduce costs, putting in new amenities doesn't necessarily reduce costs? Or was it really to eliminate those things? And then maybe in your centralized bigger parks, you could have better equipment because you weren't spending money all over the place. You were centralizing those resources. So that would be an interesting feedback question to get from the council.
Or was it also to look at different amenities in those replacements?
Right.
So, you know, whether that's a disc golf course or whatever that may be. So we have a more variety versus every park has
That's
a.
not gonna save money necessarily.
No, it's not, no, and I think that's a good clarification as to, you know, because of, as you said, because of the timing, you know, with maintenance costs and then just overall replacement, we've put ourselves in a tough spot.
Chair, can we move this to
Yeah.
discussion and not just
Exactly.
questions?
So I'm
That's why I
going to
formulated the
recommend
question.
that we move through each park that's listed for discussion, like individually, just to help structure everything. And then at the end, let's come back to general discussion, maybe on like, what are the overarching goals? Does that sound okay to folks?
You want to go through every part for,
These.
That Adam has listed on our agenda,
oh, okay.
in the
Gotcha.
CIP, things in the
Gotcha.
CIP.
Oh, I see.
And just kind of, if folks have thoughts on the merits or other ideas, maybe that, like, those notes might be helpful, and then we can have a general discussion again at the end.
Well, I guess, do we need to have discussion about our criteria in general before we would make a decision about these individual parks, or?
Well, Adam, maybe this is a point of clarification for you. Am I correct in thinking that you're not looking for a recommendation per se, that you're just looking for discussion points at this time, or
Yeah,
can we clarify that?
well, a little bit of both.
Okay.
It's something that we can take with us, right, that we can jot down, we have as our notes, that we can take with us when we review the next park. And I think Peter's got a good point here. Let's make a criteria, you know, what that might be, if it's community parks, if it's neighborhood parks, if it's parks within certain distance from each other, whatever that might be. Have that criteria lined out, so those are the, you know, 4 or 5 things that we can address each one of these parks, you know, a distance from the neighboring park, right? So those, just very similar to how we did our porta potty policy, right? So if we create that, it's a lot easier to go down through each one of these
Yeah.
and say yes, no,
Yay,
yes, no.
nays.
Right.
Okay, well, let's have a discussion on the criteria and proposed process of how parks might be evaluated in the future for if the playground's replaced or not.
Well, I'll throw out some. Location, the type of park, the potential for alternatives, or attractive alternatives, neighborhood feedback. And I would also put in alternatives that, something that we heard about yesterday was wildlife paths. If we take a park that only has a playground set in it and it's not replaced, well, then that park could be characterized as a wildlife path. But I would put that in the alternative forms of recreation.
I think we can classify that as a natural area. I think that's what we have in our,
Yeah.
our classification as a
Yeah.
natural area.
Yeah. So there's some ideas of criteria. As far as process, I would say have staff take, for example, this list, using whatever criteria, and present something for us to review, then come back at least at a second meeting so that there's the potential for feedback. And even with all of that, we still wouldn't make the decision until we come up with in the budget window.
For process, I feel like I would recommend that we can that we hit pause on things for 3-5 years. I feel like things are changing so dynamically in our community right now that, making a final decision for the next 30 years feels like it might not be the wisest thing. And like we saw it at Pebble Park, right? Components of that playground had been removed before the site was replaced, and that, that's obviously going to be on a case-by-case basis if and when and how that happens. And so I think that some of these parks, it might make sense to have short-term decisions.
Could we add maybe usage and demographics to the criteria?
Like neighborhood demographics?
Yeah. Because if we're taking out one and the demographics change, we could be aged out and in 10 years, it's back to ones that would use a playground.
I agree. I mean, usage is a huge one.
Yeah.
I don't know how we answer that.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a-
That's not to say we can't. I'm just like,
It's a little bit
hidden-
anecdotal, probably, but
Hidden Knoll is up in the northeast, and it's hidden behind a bunch of houses. I suspect that that's just not used, but that's simply me suspecting that based on it being hidden away, and you have to it's probably used by the people that live directly there, I guess. I don't know but I don't know, we can't install surveillance cameras. We can't have, maybe we could have a little strip that goes across when people, I don't know how we measure that use, but that to me is a huge one. I mean,
is, but,
we
yeah.
just did Kleiss, and I live right there. I mean, it's named after my family. It's a park that's important to me, but I'm like, man, can we justify this park, this playground by its usage? I wish we could measure that.
I think accessibility, in addition to just use, is important to me. Like, for instance, I live immediately adjacent to Reed Park, but my recommendation would be not to replace it because I can access Lions Park and Pilot Park via trails. It's not a main road. So prioritizing trail connections.
Yeah.
For, using
Yeah.
those funds to
Access, yeah.
improve that, to me, that would be a really suitable alternative versus if, like Firefly Park, I don't know how accessible that truly is to Lions Park because you have major
Yeah.
thoroughfares right now.
There's going to be a tunnel.
Yeah, we decided that last night, right?
No, the thing about Firefly Park is, and the one I see, and this is where we all kind of have to join in on this, is like Tanner Ridge. If we could get that
Right.
trail connection there,
Yeah.
then there's not needed. And I know, for example, that development that Adam was talking about out by Hidden Knoll and Carriage Station, we originally did not ask for any park space because it was going to actually be a perfect connection for all of those parks, wherever the status of that addition is at. But getting back to your point, accessibility is a big thing, and if we were to cut down on these, there would be more money to put in for trails.
If you could do the trails.
If you could do that.
I mean, the development aspect of that is something, especially on the west side, where you've got parks that are spread out. I have concerns about, you access those by Pebble, for example. You access that except for the immediate neighbors. There is no path there. Tablin you can get from one section, but there's a lot of people that drive there. The Stonegate's the same way. I mean, obviously there's neighbors that live there, but there's a path there actually. But being able to connect the trails, I think we've experienced very little ability to connect trails through the years. The development's put in trails, but connecting them together has been very, very problematic.
The other one that fits right in there is Ridge and the Heights,
Right.
okay? I mean,
Ridge is very isolated.
Ridge is very isolated unless it's connected to the Heights and unless there's a huge development to the south, I don't know. But like I said, I think any decisions that you make 5 years down the road, they can correct that or change it if demographics change or whatever. But if we pick a park and say, hey, we're not gonna do it right now because we have other priorities,
Well, I guess as far as criteria that we use, which I think is the question, I'd kind of back up and say, I'm going to rely on the master plan, which we put all of us put a lot of time and effort in. It's a document it's a working document. It can change. It's not set 100% in stone, but it does say, and I'm going to read it directly, it says, ensure every neighborhood park has a playground or a play feature. And it goes on to say, to have a flex field as well as a distinctive feature to distinguish it from other parks. So to your point, if it's not a playground, it's a play feature. If we're going by what this recommendation says, that costs money. So it's not about, to me, about eliminating eliminating infrastructure so we save money, nor is it something that I don't believe it's something that our citizens want. We have, I guess, by the count in the master plan, I see 13 parks. I guess I don't, playgrounds rather. I don't know, 13, 15, I don't know. But I do know we're in the plus category by the national standard. That to me does say that we could do much better about coming up with, instead of the playground, to have a play feature, some sort of alternative to a playground. That makes sense to me. And for coming up with criteria, to me, that seems like eliminating some of the redundancy over on the east side where they're clustered together a little more closely, but replacing them with some sort of play structure rather than just eliminating altogether and making natural areas. I mean, that's my perspective on that.
and one way to do it, just picking up on your idea, is to do it the backwards way. Fulfill the plan and say, hey, we're not gonna have playground equipment in these parks, these smaller neighborhood, non-used parks. We're gonna shift it to those resources to the west or whatever. But it's a way to approach it too. Then you would give the idea to the council that we are, in fact, listening to them and doing what their directive is.
Again, I don't know that that's a directive.
Right.
I want to be careful with that we really get hung up on the idea that one.
Strongly suggested multiple times. Okay.
Well,
That we should look at it, and that's where
We're doing.
that's what I'm struggling with. Because if we can make the argument that we should keep 15 playgrounds or whatever the number is, I
Yeah.
don't have a problem doing that if
Right.
we can justify that makes sense.
Right. I mean, the biggest issue that I have with our playgrounds, the way they're structured, is not like kind of where they are in geographic location. It's how they were structured within the developments. Again, I'll bring up that hidden knoll. It's just something to me that the developer said, oh, we have this corner. This is going to be your piece for the park. It's not at all accessible in a way a normal
More than
neighborhood park would be.
more than a
And
neighborhood.
the same with something like Hames, however you say that, that's structured, houses literally clustered around it. That's great for those individual houses, but we can't really do anything about that. That is said and done. But to the idea that, I think there definitely could be, we could look at a couple playgrounds to be eliminated, and certainly with the idea that we add other play features, absolutely. But to say that we've got to cut our playgrounds in half, I just have not I want to really be careful with the idea that that's what we have a directive to do.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I'm hearing 4 criteria develop from this discussion. And that's 1, does the park classification merit a play feature? That's definitional, right? That's yes or no, based on the proposed definitions. And maybe there's a no, not currently, but yes, if we go with that proposed classification. I'm also hearing the question, is the play feature redundant? Is there a nearby playground that would be accessible or suitable if that playground was removed? And then are there suitable amenity alternatives to a playground at that site?
Can you
Does that
say
capture?
the last one again?
Yeah, help me with the wording, but essentially, like, if that playground came out, is there a suitable amenity that would be a replacement? Or not a replacement, but like, so I guess that gets at that redundancy question, just, I mean, I'm trying to capture this discussion.
Yeah.
Does that do
Yeah, I
it? Like,
appreciate
what's
that.
missing?
No, it's good.
When we refer to suitable amenities, like alternative amenities, my only concern is if we put, let's say we substitute in Hidden Knoll, how it's not very accessible for people. If we take out the park and we put, when we're thinking about this disc golf or something else, my only concern is if it wouldn't, like, it's not gonna attract people who live more than 5 minutes away from it because of the I can't think of the right word, but like novelty, not novelty, but it's just not as applicable to many people.
So, rather, the question is there an alternative amenity that would be a good,
Yeah, that's
Fit,
something
right?
that we don't just plop down and say, okay, good,
Right.
we fix this park. It's like
I agree.
something that ties into the park.
And no pickleball.
And that neighborhood, and that neighborhood,
And
and
no
would they use
Exactly.
it? Would they use it? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would add to that list is, I really think the idea of, is it, is it being used? And will it be used is paramount to it.
Right.
I don't know what the threshold is either.
and I don't know how to measure that.
Yeah.
Well, some of it will be by community input.
It'll
Whether-
have to be, because that's the only way we kind of know usage, or even, But I still think I go back to Stonegate and Ivywood, and right now, then that's in the neighborhood I live in, and there's not that many kids right now, but I don't know with the new developments, maybe there will be. That could change the total focus of those 2 parks. Right now, you get pickleball courts and a shelter, and then the playground at Stonegate's way on the north side, so those new developments wouldn't even, they can access it, but they wouldn't even really know it's there. Cause you can't see it from the road. So, to me, demographics, and that's gonna change. Is a,
Well, yeah, so that, is that all basically community feedback? Is the current playground being used? What is planned there, like community planning? Population, housing stock, that type of.
Right. Cause I'm sure there's neighborhoods where the neighborhood's aged out of the system, out of the playground system, but then in 5 years, it might change
Yeah.
back over.
Well, I think that's where, like, a 5-year decision could be prudent in
Right.
some of these
Right.
cases versus a complete removal from the CIP.
The other reason I like these criteria is then we would apply that to any new parks. So does it make sense to put a playground equipment into the new central multi-functional park, ballpark thing? And the place on the south side, southeast side, maybe it's not, it seems really clear right now, but when we get up to it, maybe it's not. So I'd use it for new equipment too. Because there are gonna be other developments.
Could have you repeat the criteria that you have?
Okay, well, I feel like they've changed. So let me give you what I have right now, and then we can just, let's work on this. One, does the park classification merit a play feature, either current or proposed classification? Is the playground redundant, meaning is there a nearby playground that would be accessible and suitable if this one was removed? Is there an alternative amenity that would be a good fit at the park? What is the community feedback, including is the current playground being used, and is the neighborhood anticipated to change in the near future? Thinking about demographics, population, that type of stuff. So that's 4 criteria, I guess. Does that adequately get everyone's thoughts?
I think
Peter
Peter had
has more
mentioned,
thoughts.
Peter's main message was the usage, how do you measure that? But I think you can definitely get that back through that community feedback.
Feedback, yeah.
If it's surveys, if it's, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I think that's generally how we got to the replacements of, or how we did our surveys for the first go-around, when we did our first 4 parks, Clyce, Pebble, Tablin, DeMontreville, right? We did it again for Reed, we did it for Alliance. We always had that survey for community input. And I think that's been a huge input on use and, our intent for that park as well.
I would also hate to remove a play structure or do another major change to a park without inviting community feedback.
Sure.
That seems really short-sighted.
Right.
And I think your adjacent, what was your first one there, your first criteria?
The classification,
No, second one, adjacent.
the redundancy.
Redundancy would include in general location and your accessibility, would all be in that. That's my feeling.
Okay, I like it. So we've discussed criteria. Would we like to discuss process of evaluation?
Well, as Adam talked about, first thing you do is put these all into a document, the criteria. And then we'd have a standing document to use. That would be one thing, one step.
And use it to evaluate
Yeah,
both current, planned projects as well as
Current.
future ones
Yeah.
coming online.
and again, we can, once it gets out, it can be shown to council members and saying, hey, this is what we're gonna use as a criteria. There you go.
And then I guess we would have appropriate justification for, saying we want to replace this existing playground with a $200,000 playground, which,
They still make the decision, yeah.
yeah.
But versus now, where we don't have a tendency to look at that integrated approach, this would a little bit start to direct us in looking more at that integrated approach with trails and connectivity and the adjacentness and all that. If we put that down in writing and say, hey, these are the things we're gonna look at before we add a new or replace play structure.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And Mark checks the boxes, right?
Yeah.
Or it gives you a reasoning at the end to say, we are replacing this because you may have only marked 3 of the 4 boxes, 3 of the 6 boxes, whatever it may
Whatever,
be.
yeah.
But our reasoning is this, we have potential growth, whatever it might be.
That's great. Any other thoughts on criteria or process? Did folks want to discuss individual parks that are on the agenda item? Or do we feel like this is plenty to go from?
I think we talked a lot, and I think we've already talked about specific parks. We didn't go through them completely, but we gave some examples there to help develop our criteria.
Yeah. And Adam, you're not looking for an adjustment to our CIP at this point, so.
No, I'm not. If you wanted to maybe just do a trial run or a test run of your criteria, I would maybe just try Ridge or Tablin, one of those ones that are coming up this year to say, and not to adjust your criteria based off those two parks, but does it work? Right?
Yeah. That's a good suggestion. Do folks support that?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, let's think about Ridge and Tablin. Park classification, does it merit a play feature?
Tablin's community park.
Yeah,
Bridge is not.
Ridge is not.
Ridge is a proposed neighborhood park, and every neighborhood park needs a play feature, is that correct?
Well, is
And
Ridge
resident
is
and
currently a
sheriff.
neighborhood, is Ridge,
Yep.
is Ridge a proposed community park?
It is not.
It's not.
I just had it up. I don't know if you guys can see
Yeah,
it.
this is page 22 of the master plan.
So, I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but this is our this isn't our Parks Master Plan. But Ridge Park on here is a neighborhood and it's proposed
Okay.
as a neighborhood. So.
Okay, I thought when we had discussed it that you had characterized it as a potential community park.
Yes, I think I did in November,
Yeah, that's what I
November
thought when we were
is
looking at those
November
changes to the entrance and that, right? At Ridge, yeah.
So, I mean, would you, as staff potentially suggest it as community park? Maybe it doesn't matter for this discussion right now.
Well-
Either way, it merits, right?
So they would both merit it. Is the playground redundant at Tablin or Ridge? AKA, is there a nearby playground that would be accessible or suitable if the playground in question was removed? At Tablin, I think we maybe need to look at the new park just south of Sunfish, though that could be hard. Heights Park is a natural area, so not super applicable.
The new park within the Lake Elmo.
Ball field.
Yeah,
Oh, you're talking about the complex.
the complex.
Okay.
Excuse me. I guess that's not super
Well,
accessible.
then I'll throw in a thing here. Well, they have great access to the Lake Elmo Park Reserve, which has one of the finest playground pieces of equipment in America. I don't know if that counts.
Yeah, I'm very hesitant. I always have been. It's certainly an amenity as a part of our community, but we have to pay to get into it.
Right.
It's not our park system. I hear what you're saying, but I'm really hesitant to include that as a part of our, I don't know that I'm right in my logic, but that's how I've logicked it out.
And that's a different accessibility.
Yeah.
I mean,
It is
not trails or walking or whatever, that's, to me, that's just well, not accessibility, equal access.
And actually, you can't, from Tablin, you have to go around the whole, I guess if you can't enter,
Get in there, can you?
No, I think you can. I think you
Yeah,
can
there's a
walk.
back
You can
trail,
get in the
but,
back way,
There's that
but
back
it's not
entrance.
easy.
yeah, and I mean, it would be a couple miles
to
to
a
get to that
playground, I mean,
playground.
to the playground, I
Yeah.
mean.
If you need
Yeah.
to access it via a car, you're gonna have a big challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, so it seems like for Tablin, we're agreeing at, no, the playground, there is not a nearby playground that would be super accessible or suitable if it was removed. What about for Ridge Park?
No, the same applies.
I know. On a busy road, too.
Are there alternative amenities that would be a good fit at Tablin or Ridge? I think we've discussed a lot of opportunities for something at Ridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the website right now, it says Ridge Park is getting a playground upgrade and will feature an ADA accessible walking and bike paths. Oh, I'm sorry, that did not mention, oh, wait, sorry, yeah, the playground upgrade. I'm sorry, I read that the first time and I thought I was going somewhere with it, sorry.
That's not good.
Well, the thing is, and this is the difference between the community park and the neighborhood park, there's not much else at Ridge other than the playground. And at Tablin, you have the
Courts
baseball field, the sledding hill, and the pickleball
Field
courts.
at Ridge. There's a baseball field at Ridge, kind of.
That's
Yeah.
part of the distinguishing thing there. So if you get rid of any amenity at Ridge, it's gonna be almost a wildlife area.
Which might be okay for a 5-year decision, I also might argue.
And there
Based
were
on
some
feedback.
voices in that crowd that came in that talked about everything was bad, but because of the noise.
Okay, so I feel like we're having trouble answering that criteria.
Yeah, I think that's yeah.
And then we would ask, what is the community feedback? Thinking about current usage, thinking about current or future neighborhood demographics. We can't answer that.
Well, yeah, and I'm stuck on the idea, it's the same as usage and demographics to me, the same, demographics seems even harder. I mean, I don't know that our sophistication level is to review projections on turnover for housing stock. I just don't think we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Certainly for, well, I mean, maybe not certainly, but potentially for new development, who the target.
Yeah.
I mean, globally or higher level, you could look at stats from school district and just in general, high-level global numbers of how many age group are in Lake Elmo, what's, we got 22%, 50 and older, we got, that kind of stuff we could,
Yeah.
We can
we
look
could
at
access.
Yeah. We can look at census blocks
Yes.
as well, which are not going to be the level of specificity that you would need. Population under 5, population under 18, that type
But
of
looking at these two parks right now is just as a demo, and just going by observation, again, because Tablin has more things, there are more people there. So if somebody's brought their kid so they can play pickleball, then you send the kid off to the playground, okay? That's not gonna happen at Ridge Park, okay? And I can tell you, I probably can count on one hand the number of times I've seen anybody around Ridge Park, okay? I don't think I've seen anybody utilize the playground. I've seen people in the park walking around. But that's how you gotta, if you're gonna make those determinations between those two parks, that's one of the ways you would make the determination.
All right, so I feel like our criteria didn't work super well to be like obvious yes, obvious no, but I think that was also not going to happen.
No, that's not gonna, there's a lot of gray.
Yeah.
There's not a lot, it's not.
Well, and there's, it very well could be because of the two parks we just used. It may be a lot easier for other parks.
I think it's gonna be hard for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't necessarily be easy.
Because again, it's gonna be on a one-by-one basis. And going
Yeah.
by what's in the plan. Hey, it's gotta have a playground.
Yeah, I think, so here's one thing that I think we were missing, at least for me, is I think that part of the question which city council was asking is if there is currently a climber structure with 3 slides, that type of thing, are we looking at replacing something equivalent or more? And do we ask the question if we're replacing with something that might be smaller in footprint, like less expensive, less of an amenity? So if our answers are yes, I think that maybe we need to ask this follow-up question. yes with what? Like, yes, we replace it with, and like, what does that look like?
The good thing about the criteria is before, there was no way to demonstrate that we had considered any of these things. It looks like we would come in, playground, fix it, go, stamp, stamp, stamp. What the criteria gives us is the ability, not to say that we're gonna get rid of any, not to say we're not going to do it, but that we can show, demonstrate to city council and the public that we are considering these things. And hopefully
Yeah.
Peter is right, so there'll be some parks that just stand out, hey, this really needs this kind of amenity, okay? And therefore, we can move ahead with it. But even if we don't do that, and we just go and replace it, we can argue that we have gone through and had the discussion, maybe to get rid of it, maybe to keep it for all these great reasons, but we have those reasons now, because we put this into a policy or a directive or whatever it is, guideline or whatever it is. I think that's the benefit of having these. But I agree, I think it's gonna be difficult for H1 going through, because, to be blunt, people with generally good intentions and generally good reasons put these parks where they're at. Okay? And so, even though we've got a lot of them, there were a lot of good reasons to put them where they were at. And I agree with Peter, maybe we haven't gotten a specific directive to do that, but I think now what we can do with the criteria is say, here is what we evaluated.
Well, and I also think it'll be helpful moving forward. It may actually help the criteria. There may be occasion where we use it to warrant to add a,
Oh, yeah.
you know, if the sports complex goes in and we decide it makes sense to have a large playground there.
Yeah.
Or whatever, you know, whatever I meant, you know, I think it's gonna help in that way as well.
Yeah, and I guess I sucked into my breath there is because I actually think we have to do that now as we form this criteria and start to think about how that would look, you know, what it looks like at Ridge. I think we should be having that discussion of here's not the ultimate decision, but here's the park commission's perspective on whether we need or want a playground in that complex. So we have that question answered. Not only for the complex itself, so it's when hopefully we get some input to say, yeah, this is what we decided, and we've thought about it, and we've gone through some criteria, but also so we can do that for this decision-making process now, to say, well, Tablin doesn't necessarily need that because down the road is gonna be a big sports complex playground. So I think we need to do that now. I mean, not now.
Yeah.
But
As
is
a part
it,
of this process.
but as a draft, go through it and say, hey, this is what we would, if we had to rate all these by our criteria right now, this is what we would rate them all as. And that's
Yeah, and plus sports complex.
Right. well,
Yeah.
Right.
So I think, okay, so hearing that, I think that, yeah, we shift a mindset to not thinking about evaluating just current ones and making the final criteria or the interim criteria more flexible would be great. And I also agree that like going through, getting some information on these things would be really useful. Adam, is it something that could you like set up a survey for us to provide, like go through that as like a little homework before a future meeting?
Yeah. We could, yeah, we could write down these, classifications or these criteria. We put together our parks, right? And then you guys classify them and we kind of bring them back as a, you know, just to review each one again, why we said, like you said, there's gonna be gray areas of people, why people pick one versus another, but that's part of the discussion, right? And I think that's what Hank's getting at, is like, we can scream till we're blue in the face about something, right? But, at the end, like, it either meets the criteria or, you know, you have somebody that might think elsewise.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, just to capture that gray area, I think that reframing these criteria to like a yes, no, sometimes versus a yes, no might be more accurate.
See what we get.
It's a starting point.
Right.
Right.
And we might change it a year from now or 2 years from now. It might be, it's fluid. We might have to alter it, but I think we need a foundation.
Yeah.
So let's see, we've approved Lions, right?
Correct.
Lions is all approved. That's what I'm asking for. So, but Ridge is not. So Ridge would be the first one in the chute as far as evaluating.
And Tablin, both are 2026, right?
On to a tablet, okay.
So we'll be having the same discussion, hopefully with better answer, hopefully with a more clear recommendation.
But Ridge was the one that we saw in the fall, right, with the.
The concepts.
With the
Yep.
concepts, with the parking, and that might alter our decision, because it was one of them had a shelter in it, one of them had a soccer, if I remember, soccer field, And I know the neighborhood didn't like really any of those, but that might help if we,
Might help.
maybe there's other amenities, maybe a walking trails is what only fits there, or what it wants, makes sense.
At least for the next 5 years or something.
Right, and it fits that alternative kind of amenity or use.
Other discussion? Adam, do you feel like you have what you need from us?
Yeah, and I can always follow up with you if I have additional questions, but yeah. That's what I was looking for. I was looking for a criteria that we can gauge and we can score these as we go along. But we can definitely take that quick little survey in between just to kind of do a test run as well, to kind of get a better idea to bring those back, right, to justify those. So going forward.
And I think that we didn't hear it from council last night, but we've heard it in prior workshops that they want to know what we're thinking to help them as well. And I know that street goes both ways, right? And so they might find it really helpful if we have this is what we're currently thinking. We're going to be asking or recommending that, yeah, you spend a lot of money here and not here and. Okay, great. Next agenda item is public comment, which there is none. Moving on to communications and updates.
So, just an update on our ice rink. Our ice rink is because of our warm weather and rain, it's kind of went downhill, but we do have some colder weather coming back here into next week. We did, put on another layer of ice today, so hopefully do that again Friday in between snowfalls here, small little bit tomorrow and Friday. So hopefully we can put down some more water on Friday, and then into early next week to get our ice rink back up and going. Our grooming operations, we did groom twice this year, again, lack of snow, since the rain and ice storms, so, that'll come back once we do get some additional snow. And like I said last night, our purpose is to, get our new Shilkins Park into that grooming or that ski trail grant, for 2026 here. We will probably try to test run, our grooming through there, just to get that path down and ways of operation with that. Again, thank you all for coming to the Parks and City Council workshop last night. Hopefully that we can continue that for the years to come. I think our administrators definitely in line with that, of continuing that operation. It's been a huge asset, I think, for both parties, just to kind of let things out in communication that way. I do plan to bring back the Ridge Park concept, just take some of your guys' ideas, work with our contractor on that. So I did talk to one of the association members, probably likely bring that back in February already. And just an update on Lions Park. We did bring that to City Council, as you remember, back in October and in November, and then it was tabled, and then we brought it back to him. So we did miss that guideline for that reduction of cost on that playground. And so there is an additional fee to that playground of $10,000. So I did write a memo back to the City Council, go to the next workshop, the next City Council meeting on the 20th, to ask for that additional $10,000. Our other option is that they deny it, and Public Works install the play chips or the safety chips for that. So, the play chips do come in, or the safety chips do come in at about $12,000. Option is that we can purchase those, for about half the price, at 250 cubic yards is what it is. We can purchase that for about $6,000, stay within our budget of $317,000. We don't have a whole lot of room as far as the landscaping and other things that, additional trees and things like that. But, Public Works could install that on our own if they proceeded not to, take on that additional $10,000. So, we do have 2.4 million in there, to adjust with, so it will be their discretion on what they decide to do with that, so. Just to be transparent with that. That's all I have.
Status of hiring Public Works Director?
That is on the next city council meeting as well.
Yep. And we're on February, the next meeting is February.
It would just also a date change, right?
Yes, there's also a date change, there's a holiday on that. We always have that confusion of January and February, right? So we have that holiday, so does run that Wednesday, I
Wednesday
believe,
after the
correct?
holiday.
16, or 6:30 and the 18th.
On the
18th.
18th.
Okay, any updates from commissioners? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?